Mary, do you just want to take a moment and just share about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, so I am a CPA with about 15 years of finance experience. About 5 of those were in FP&A, so I spent a lot of time in budgeting and forecasting there, and then 3 years as a nonprofit fractional CFO and controller. So helped a lot of nonprofit clients with their budgeting processes and a lot of their reporting.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mary Rose. For accountants, we were in the profession and corporate finance. What we always struggled with is just wanted reports in a specific way, right? And so invariably, whether we used a very sophisticated reporting tool or reported directly out of, the ERP, invariably that data found its way into Excel, where we would massage the data, make manual additions, and was great for a certain period of time, but come next month, we had to redo it again. And so that's how we came up with a solution of how to make these Excel spreadsheets live, right? And how to build them so that they can refresh data either directly out of an accounting system or out of a reporting database. And so hence, Finatical Flash Reports here for QuickBooks Online. We're a Microsoft partner, obviously, because, the Excel connection. And then also with Intuit as well, we're a silver partner in the Intuit Partnership Program. Here, I'm going to hand over to Mary Rose just to take us through here just the learning objectives here for today's webinar.
Thank you. So today we're going to talk a lot about budgeting, different approaches, and offer some best practices on your budgeting process. Then we're going to walk through one process you could follow, creating your own budget using Flash reports in Excel. And then at the end, we're going to walk through creating a monthly forecast in Excel.
Okay. So those are the things that we're going to be doing. But yeah, just before we jump in here, let me launch a quick poll, and I think then Mary Rose will also speak to it as well. So let me just bring this up here, poll. Okay. So Mary Rose, did that poll come up? Okay. So
yes, it did.
Budgeting challenges. Yeah. Do you want to speak to it, Mary Rose? And yeah, just take us through the.
Sure. So let's talk about what challenges you have faced in your budget. If you've already started making budgets, you've done this a few years, or you started your process this year for the first time. Let's talk about what the issues are that you're facing. I think one of the most common ones I've heard is just getting started. Where do I even start to talk through this? Then sometimes you don't have all the data you need to create a budget by yourself. You have to get data from everyone else, and that can be like herding cats. Sometimes it's just trying to use the technology and make it work for you. Sometimes if you've been through this before, you know that you end up with, a couple dozen versions of your budget before you're done. And so you're trying to keep all those straight and remember which one you made a change to last week. And then sometimes it's just, when are you even going to find time to create a budget on top of everything else you're already doing, especially if you're, an executive director or running a nonprofit, you don't have time to make a budget. Or if there's something else, just let us know what it is.
Okay. I'm going to end the poll here and then share the results.
Oh, I love that. So stakeholders was our top response. Trying to herd the cats, trying to get everyone to give you the information that they're holding. And then next one was just getting started. Yeah, that staring at a blank Excel page and trying to figure out what you're going to do next. So that's good, because getting started is one that we're going to be answering today.
Okay, very cool. Thank you. I'm going to close that, and I'm back here. And then, yeah, Mary Rose, you want to, yeah, these are some of the common budgeting challenges that I think that you've heard about, right?
Yeah, so like a lot of people said today, it's just an overwhelming process. You're staring at a blank spreadsheet. You don't know where to start, because you're being asked to say what next year is going to cost. How are you supposed to know what next year is going to cost? A lot of times you don't have time. It takes forever to try and pull everything together and make it into one cohesive budget. And then, as most of our viewers were saying, trying to gather information from everyone and find out, like what do you actually need for next year? You're trying to get your program managers to actually tell you what their plans are for next year so that you can figure out how much money we need to allocate for those plans. You're getting information from everywhere, and so you're trying to all combine it into one single document. That can also be very challenging. Multiple versions, trying to keep straight which version you're actually working on and which one has information from who, etc. And then once you've gotten through the end of the process, then you have to find a way to send this gargantuan file you've created out to the people who need to approve it. You don't want to send this huge, messy, chaotic genius of a file out to your board. So you want to get something neat and clean. And then even once you've gotten through all of that, your technology challenges come in. You need to upload this into your software. So now you have to put it into a template, which doesn't match the way that you were creating your budget at all. And a lot of times these Excel files just get huge. So you have a lot of fragile formulas that you're trying not to break as you're going through and updating and making changes.
Next
slide. All right. Now, before we do jump into talking about budgets in general, I wanted to go through the way that we have set up this sample nonprofit company, which also lines up with a lot of nonprofit best practices for how to set up QuickBooks. So for our general ledger accounts, those are going to track the type of thing, whether it's your income, expense, asset, or liability. I've seen a lot of people try and use the general ledger to track all sorts of things, whether it's, trying to track your programs in the general ledger, trying to track your customers, your grants, all of that. It gets very messy very fast. So I do strongly recommend that you don't duplicate your accounts. It should line up with the categories on your Form 990 pretty well, because you can use your other dimensions to track all of the rest of it, and it's a lot cleaner. So to track the use of the income or the expense, we recommend using classes. So that's where you can talk about your functional areas. It can line up with your statement of functional expenses. So you can have a class for general administrative, a class for fundraising, a class for programs, and then nest all your different individual programs underneath that program class. You can also use departments and locations. In this example, we're not using them, but they're great for if you do have different divisions or different sites. Or you can actually use it to track restricted and non-restricted giving. One nice thing about the department and location field is you can use it on the balance sheet, where classes are really only on the P&L. Customers, you can use those for the funding source or the granting agency. It should be a top level item. So even if you have multiple grants from the same funding source, you don't want to have multiple customers for that. So you want to have a single one that kind of combines all of that, because you can use your sub-customer or project field to actually track individual grants. So that way you can nest all of those under the one granting agency and keep it a lot neater. Next slide, please.
That makes perfect sense. And yeah, if there are any questions, on this, so definitely just put it there, in the chat function, and we can definitely, answer them. But yeah, no, thank you for sharing this. Thanks, Mary Rose, and I'll move on here to the next slide.
All right, this is just a quick example taken from our sample company that shows the way that that kind of shows the structure. So as you see, we have donations restricted, donations unrestricted. We're not tracking our grants in our general ledger and our chart of accounts. We're not tracking our programs. All your donations can go into one or two accounts, and then you use your classes to say what the use of those donations is, whether it's restricted, unrestricted. It can be in administration, in your programs, or in fundraising. All right, now what you really came for, let's talk about budgeting. There's really two main methods we're going to talk about as far as where you start with your budget. What I've usually seen for nonprofits, especially as they're just starting out, or if they're a little smaller, they would use what's called top-down budgeting, where the leadership of the organization, whether it's the executive director, the finance director, they will plan at the organizational level. So just at that top level, And usually the easiest way to do this is to look at last year's results and increase or decrease based on what happened last year. They might at that point divide it among the divisions or programs, but you start with the whole organization. And this is a great method for smaller nonprofits where you don't have a lot of stakeholders. You don't have a lot of program managers or other people who really need to have input. And you could use pretty much the same method that we're going to use here to using flash reports. But what we're going to talk about today is for the slightly larger nonprofit where you do have some more people involved. So this is called bottom-up budgeting, where you start with each functional area and program, and you roll it up to an organizational budget. So there's a lot of benefits to this. One thing is it really helps gain buy-in from the people who are going to be actually using the budget. So if you send the budget for the program to the program manager first, you get their input, then they have a lot more willingness to comply, let's say, with the budget, and a lot more ownership. It also allows you to be a lot more accurate in your predictions of program-specific needs if you're starting at that level. I will admit it can be more work, but we're going to set up the template today using flash reports, and you'll see it shaves a ton of time off the process.
Okay. So Mary Rose, this is also the scenario then where in our poll it came up is that it's I think what is it, almost 50% of the struggles, right? We're getting input from stakeholders. So I mean, can one assume that most folks actually use the bottom-up approach?
That's a good question. It might be easier with the bottoms-up approach because you give them their own file, and you say, this is what you need to fill in. Please fill it in and send it back. Because a lot of times you might be chasing your board, you might be chasing your finance committee around trying to get information, even if you're doing top-down budgeting.
Okay, time for another quick poll here. And so I'm going to just bring up our second poll here before we get into let's continue there. Okay, is that launched? Can you see that, Mary Rose?
Yes. So let's talk about what dimension you guys are budgeting with. So as you've created budgets, are you doing these just at the top level for the org or entity? Are you using it for classes or programs? Are you budgeting by your customer, project, or grant? Budgeting by department, some other combination, or you haven't started making budgets yet?
Okay, we still have some results coming in there, so let's just give it another couple of seconds there, and I'll close the poll and I'll share the results. Okay, I think just about 80–90% have voted, so I'm going to end the poll and share the results.
Oh, wonderful. So we have most people are budgeting at the class or program level, which is great because that's what we're showing today. The next most is 35% at the org or entity level. And then we've got another 20% each with customer project level or department level. And only 6% aren't making budgets yet. That's good.
That's impressive. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and yep.
All right. So another thing we're going to demonstrate today is actually putting your budget directly into QuickBooks using QuickBooks upload feature. Now, with a lot of clients I've worked with, they do all of their budget versus actual reporting outside of QuickBooks. They do it all in Excel. But I do want to strongly recommend that if possible, you do keep your budget inside QuickBooks, primarily because it's a single source of truth. So that means QuickBooks can be your system of record, the same way it is for all of the rest of your accounting. Multiple stakeholders can get in and they can see the same budget and see the results. You don't have this kind of choke point where one person is stuck doing every single month, trying to create all of the reports. And until that person is done, no one has any idea what their results were against their budget. But this way you get that, that buy-in we were talking about from the stakeholders when they can actually check their own budget versus actual results. It's also much easier. You don't have to maintain all those budget files in Excel. You can just create the budget versus actual report you need, and then using flash reports, just have it refresh monthly. The data comes straight out of QuickBooks. One reason that I've seen a lot of people not put their budgets into QuickBooks is because they really need to have multiple budgets. They need to have a budget by class and a budget by customer, for instance, a budget by class and a budget by department because of the way that they're using QuickBooks and the reports they're going to need. But you can actually just keep as many budgets as you want in QuickBooks. One thing I've seen done really successfully is to have one organizational budget that's by class that goes in. And then for specific grants, you have specific budgets that are for each of them. So as long as when you're running that budget versus actual report, you're filtering to the right grant or customer, and you're pulling in the correct budget, you have no issues with running those reports for a particular grant. The other reason I've seen people not put it in is because up to about a year ago, I think, it was not easy to import budgets into QuickBooks Online. They made it very complicated, but they've really improved their tool over the last year or so. So now you can import by class, by customer, or by department. So you don't have to put your budgets in manually. So with all of that, I can strongly recommend that you do put your budgets into QuickBooks.
No, and I can attest to that. I think just this whole capability of being able to load multiple budgets, and then choosing which one you want to report against is very powerful, right? I mean, I think that in the past, we always only used to be able to see that capability on very sophisticated FP&A, financial planning and analysis tools, right? So be able to see that now within QBO that's very cool.
Yeah, I've even had clients who every month put in a new budget, which is their forecast.
Yeah. So I mean, now you can actually create different forecasts as well, right? Maybe have a static budget and then create, a rolling forecast and then compare, budget versus forecast versus actuals as well. So technically, it's very, very much possible to do that.
All right, so just the budget cycle process. The first step, your getting started step, is building that model. And like I said, we're going to show how to do that using flash reports. It's going to be a P&L by month that we're going to explode by class. And exploding by class is as much fun as it sounds like. So then once you've got your model built, you will, do a board budget presentation to get budget approval. Now, obviously, this can be an iterative process. You may be going back and forth a few times, trying, back to your model, make the changes that the board wants, take it back to the board, etc. But eventually, you'll get board approval, and then you can upload it into QuickBooks Online. So that leaves you have multiple versions in there if you need them, but it's a single source of truth. Then once you have it in QuickBooks, you can run budget versus actual reports. You can run those every month. You can run your comparatives, year over year, month over month. And then you can also see how many dollars of your budget are remaining. So especially if you've done a grant report, a grant specific budget, it's very helpful to be able to see how many dollars are left in your budget. What have you not charged to the grant yet? Or what dollars do you need to work on spending?
Okay. Very cool. I think just this ability, with the budget in QBO enables collaboration. That's also huge, right? I mean, I think that allows everyone has access. We're all reporting off of the same data as well, right? They're not multiple versions of the truth. I think that's very powerful.
Good point.
So I think here is where we actually switch over to you, Mary Rose.
Yes. All right.
So I'm going to stop sharing and
I will start. All right. Can you see a nice blank Excel screen?
Yes, I can see it. It's up.
All right. So As I said, we're going to start using flash reports, and I'm going to show how you can pretty easily make your budget template to start with. So you just go up here to report. We're going to run a standard report. It's a profit and loss. We're going to run it by month. We're going to run it for this year to last month to get our most up-to-date data. And we do want to filter it by class. We don't want to put in this year's budget. We do want to make sure we include all active accounts so that you don't miss anything as you're creating your budget. And in this case, we don't want to do the full account name because we're going to try and match this to the format that you can import into QuickBooks with. Okay, let's import. About a second. Okay, so now we have our actual results by month through September. And now we can just start building our budget template off to the right here. So the first thing I'm going to add is a monthly average. So that for the months that we haven't already had, we have some data that we can use. So we just want to do that one divided by 9, since we've had 9 months of the year so far. Drag that all the way down. Then let's put in a plus or minus percentage. And just as a starter, we're going to say that we're going to increase everything by 5%. We can go in and change all those, but this is just so we have a placeholder. Okay, now let's start building in our months for next year's budget. So we're going to start with January 1st, 2026. Sorry, January 31st, 2026. And then one of my favorite little formulas, we're going to go for the end of the month, 1 month after this previous date. So we point it toward the previous cell, say 1 to add 1 month. We'll make this into a date format. Open it up. Okay. Now let's go and actually make this into a budget tool. So we'll take our actuals from the current year, and we'll multiply that times our percentage plus 1. And we'll drag that all the way over through September. That's as far as we have actuals. Now for October and over, oh, this is what happens when you're talking faster than you're working. We need to make that static so that we keep multiplying by our percentage. Okay, now for this one, we want to multiply the monthly average by the percentage. We want to keep an L. M. Okay. We'll take that over here to December, drag that all the way down. Okay. So now we have last year's results, which are increased by 5%. We've already got seasonal data in here because most of this is coming off of our actuals. Let's just go ahead and take our format and copy that over just to make it look a little better, make it easier to read. Take this back into a percentage. Okay, so now we have one organizational level budget template. Now this is the really fun part. Sorry, trying to get around the lovely Zoom window here. Okay, we're going to go in here. We're going to explode this report. So we've selected our class filter cell here, B3. We have selected the right worksheet, etc. This is set on the right company and the class. We'll click import. And it has just made us copies of the template we just made, one for each class that exists in QuickBooks. So now, within just a few minutes, you've made a really good start of a budget template. So now you have one tab per class, which will give you all your functional areas. So you can take these tabs, make copies of them, send them out to your stakeholders, ask them very nicely not to change everything, or lock it down with passwords so they can only change this area over here. And start getting people to fill in these templates with the information they have, send them back. You just have to copy them right back in. Now, obviously, whoever's making the budget, you probably have a lot more input as well. So you might start going through now and making all of the changes you need to. So let's say in administration, you know that you have added some administrative space that wasn't in here last year. So you're going to go into your rent expense and you're going to add $1,000 a month that wasn't there last year, right? Because this is just Excel. You can just write directly over it. You are not wedded to any of the formulas that were already put in here. Or let's say for one of your programs, you're not going to increase that by 5%. You're actually planning on growing this program by 25%. So let's look at last year's number and increase them by 25%. Take that all the way down. Other changes you might want to look at would be to say, if you know that you made changes during this current year. So let's say you hired people in Q2. So you might want to go in and adjust your Q1 payroll numbers in the various programs where those were affected and make sure that you have those at the increase level. Or if you know that you're that you're planning on hiring, next year, then you might want to increase. So based on whatever timing you're looking at for increasing your staff, you would put those in. Honestly, I usually end up having some separate schedules for things like payroll that are a little more detailed. But for the most part, you can get a lot of what you need done just at this level. Okay, let me just stop and see if we have any questions on what we've done so far.
So Mary Rose, do you typically, would you see that, everything would be almost just increases by specific, call them programs, as your 25% increase example there, or would it be individual line items that would, be increased by, let's say, program or functional area?
Individual line items, usually you do have to get to the line item level with this, because you have to, you have to, you'll know things like say insurance. You'll have a quote for next year, hopefully. So you can get in there and get pretty granular with some of those increases. Mm-hmm. But I have not found a way to avoid having to go through line by line as you're doing your budgeting process. But at least this way, if you're doing it bottom up, then hopefully you have other people who also have input there and who you can get them to kind of give, their opinion on what those line items are going to look like next year.
Okay.
All right, so now let's go back to our first tab here that we exploded, and let's make this into an organizational, total level budget. So this is where it might be nice if we had slightly fewer classes in our sample company, but we'll do what we can here. So we're just going to add up all of the cells that we have here, same cell matching up so we can get a nice summary page. Not the most fascinating thing to demonstrate, but So now we'll copy that over and all the way down without formatting. Without formatting, so didn't messing that up. So now we should have a summary of all of the changes you made on all the different tabs. Now let's add a total column, just to get the sum of our total annual budget that we are proposing. Drag that down. Fix our formatting. Okay, now let's take this percentage we have here. And instead of having this, which was meant to be an input cell where it'll change all these out here, let's use this to show what increase or decrease we had over last year. So let's take this and compare it. Sorry. So we want to take the total divided by 12 and compare that to our monthly average minus 1. And we'll put an if error in there to get around our lovely dividing by 0 issue. That all the way down without formatting. And so now we can see here exactly how much we've increased or decreased over the previous year. So you can see it's not all 5% anymore because we have made some changes. And we can see what changes we've made. And then that can get us started on our narrative of why we've made all those changes. Just making sure we have that analysis started. And there you go. You kind of have your budget template built now. All right.
Very cool.
Questions here? Nothing comes in. We can go to the next step of the budgeting cycle. This is kind of a pre-built copy of it, which is where you need to now present your budget to your board. So I was just going to show a couple examples of ways that you could use flash reports to make your budget board report. So as you can see in here, we're using flash reports. And if you're not familiar, there's a lot of other videos to kind of help with the understanding what the formula is doing. But if you go in here and you click in here in your FX, you can see where it's looking for these. So the start date, it's looking here to C3. End date, it's looking here. So we have it for year to date. Actual versus budget, we've written actual here in this cell. The account we're using is the flash total income, which is one of the options that's built into flash reports. And then we have a class filter over here in B7. So this is giving us our year-to-date actual income in each of these classes. Here we have our year-to-date budgeted income in each of those classes. It's the exact same formula, but it's looking here. And this is where you specify which budget that you want to pull in. So that's where, as I was saying, you can have multiple budgets and you just specify which one. This is how you would specify exactly which budget you want to be reporting against. This is just annualized. So we've taken our 9 months of data and multiplied it out to see what it'd be for 12. What percent of income each of these classes is representing in our annualized income. Our current year total budget. And then here, we're pulling in from the various tabs we had of our budget to say what our proposed budget for next year is. What's our increase year over year? And then what is our proposed percent of income for each of these classes? Throwing in some quick pie charts here that show the distribution. Obviously, a lot of people are going to end up trying to explain to the board why your administration class, for instance, is that increasing or decreasing over last year? Do we have a good reason, a good story for what our, administration percentage is or our fundraising percentage? And then we want to look and see, how our programs are stacking up as far as their participation in our income. And then we've also got the exact same thing, but showing expenses. So this is just one way that you could make a board presentation using flash reports. You would just go in and hide these to make a prettier one-page demonstration. Right. Any questions on this? I know it's fairly straightforward and really just an example. Okay.
What is nice with that pie chart, and then obviously you can do any type of Excel charts, you know, just referencing that data as well. And then, I mean, as you change the data, right, the charts would also update as well.
Yes, exactly. So if you've gone to your board and they've, come back with half a dozen changes, you can make all those and everything will update through.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For the last part of the demonstration, let's open a new blank workbook. Let's go back into Flash Reports. Okay, so we're going to talk about forecasting now, and I'm going to demonstrate a couple of options you have in Flash Reports for making a monthly forecast. It's under here in Financial Planning and Analysis, and this is in the new update for Flash Reports, which Chris, is that
yeah, so that's going to be released, for general release this weekend. Yeah, so it's going to go out to everybody this coming weekend, so everyone will have this release Monday morning.
Wonderful. So they will all be able to make beautiful monthly forecasts among their changes. Okay, so in here in the financial planning analysis section, we have the forecast actual / budget per month. We're not going to filter this report in this case. And then this is where you select which budget you want it to report against. All right, we'll include all the active accounts. We don't need the full account name, and we'll click import. So here we have added, you have actual results for this year up through the last month. And then for the remainder of the year, it pulls in your budget. So it combines your actuals with, if you meet your budget for the rest of the year, what will your forecasted total be? Compare that to your full year budget and see what your projected variances are in every category. So obviously this is a very thorough forecast. It's your entire P&L. And of course, you can always go in and make changes. Now, if you run your budget versus actual every single month, you'll start to realize that there were places where, your budget just did not actually match up to reality. You'll realize in certain categories, you've made some changes in your plan and they just don't really match up anymore. So you can always go in and fine tune this forecast just by overwriting any numbers in here you need to, and then it will still add it up to give you a full year forecast and compare that to your budget. I was going so fast, I skipped our wonderful uploading to QuickBooks section. So let me just wrap up the forecasting and then we will go back and upload the budget. I apologize. The next version is there's a kind of a truncated version, a more high level forecast, because for this one, this is a very large report. This is for if you really need to kind of dive into your forecast. This is not something you're going to give as a board report. This one, though, your income and expenses forecast, is a lot higher level. So let's just set it for the full year. We're not going to filter it. We want to use our 2025 budget. Import. As you can see, it gives you a really nice overall income and expenses. So those are your actuals. And then as we get into the current month and the rest of the year, it pulls in your budget, the same as the other one. And so it gives you that total forecast. And it gives you a really nice graph here showing your income and expenses, your actuals, and then switching over to the dotted line for your forecast. So those are two kind of just plug and play, just run the report, easy monthly forecast that you could update. And because you've already done all the hard work of making the budget, and so leaning on that budget that you've already created to do your forecasting for you makes a ton of sense. Okay, let me back up again and talk about actually uploading your budget into QuickBooks.
Okay, I think what's great, Mary Rose, yeah, it's just showing right now that budget versus actual functionality. And then I don't know if you've got that PowerPoint up, just maybe to show in the cycle just of where we are, we're going to go to. So essentially you've built the budget now, and what you're doing now is that budget's been approved, right? So basically your second step has been approved. Now you're ready to upload that budget for 2026 up into QBO.
Yes, exactly.
Cool.
So we just skipped to the end there for a second. I got too excited about forecasting. All right, let's log into QuickBooks. I don't put anyone else. I was very grateful when QuickBooks started letting you use a passkey to log in, much faster than trying to remember your password. Okay, so let's see. QuickBooks has now hidden budgeting under reports for reasons of its own. Let's go down here to budgets. And we'll show you how to very quickly import a budget. So it's up here, import budget. You can only import a profit and loss budget, but then you can set your time period. In this case, we've created a subdivided budget. We're going to subdivide by class, and we'll select all of our classes. And if you click next, it has now created a template for you right here. So it has all of the information you just selected right here on this first tab. So you don't want to make any changes to this first tab. But then over here, you have what should look very familiar at this point. You've got all of your accounts down the left side. You've got your months across the top, which is conveniently exactly the format that you just made your budget in. Months across the top, all of your categories, your GL accounts down the left side. So you should, unless you've made some changes in your rows and adding or subtracting different categories, you should be able to copy paste directly from this budget template into your upload template. So you just add the numbers in here, save, and then you can upload. I've already created one filled in sample just so you can see what it looks like when you do bring it in. So now it's pulling in all the tabs.
And so does that have to be saved like a CSV file or just normal Excel? What's the protocol?
It's just a normal Excel file. Yeah, no, it is a normal Excel file because it has tabs.
Cool.
So yes, just an XLSX. So now it's imported. We'll view the budget, and it pulls in all of the numbers you just put in. You can see each of these, flip through them. You could still make changes in here if you need to. It has the same budget functionality where you can take, so you have things different by a month, but if you make a change, you can always here to split the total across the rows and just split it evenly. That's, you can look at it in total, you can look at it by month, and then all you have to do is save and you have your budget in QuickBooks. So if you kind of are consistent with your formatting, you can have your budget in QuickBooks in 10 minutes.
And I think that's also just when you build that template, Mary Rose, that you used all active accounts, right? And so, I mean, that basically makes sure that all your rows are created exactly the same in your template as well as what, they exist within QBO.
We have one question to show the one that we uploaded. Yeah, I certainly can. So this is identical to the template we brought down, but it just has, again, I made no changes on the categories down the left side, just copy and pasted directly in from the budget template. The one change you do have to make before you copy and paste is you need to remove these subtotals. So these lines here, let's say total donations unrestricted, total exchange income. You need to remove those before you copy and paste, but you can leave in total income and total expenses. Okay, I think that takes us to our summary slide. So I think over to you, Chris, if that's all right.
Okay, yep. Should I share my screen over here? Okay. Mary Rose, just before that, do you want to show a budget versus actual with a new budget version, in your actual reports there, with your updated budget? Or do you think we've covered that in our previous example?
I think we covered that, and there won't be data for the new budget yet since it's for 2026.
Okay. All right, yeah. It's the benefits just of this process. You want to take through that?
Oh, sure. Yes, sorry. Yeah, so we've shortened the budgeting cycle by taking a lot of the guesswork out of creating that template, and also kind of making it smoother for being able to send out the pieces of the template out to the stakeholders, getting it back, be able to copy paste it right in, and having it summarize. We also we have been putting it straight into QuickBooks. You're already paying for QuickBooks, so you want to make sure that you're using the investment you already have. With Flash Reports, it's plug and play for most of these items. And it's also just easier because you already know how to use Excel. So with Flash Reports, you just can leverage the knowledge you already have. For the budget versus actual report, you can mix any combination you want of budgets, forecasts, actuals in one sheet. You're not stuck with just the QuickBooks versions of the actual versus budget reports. The upload functionality is standard in QuickBooks. You can put it in by class, by customer, or by department. And then you can use a centralized or decentralized budgeting process.
Yeah, I think that just allowing for both of those budgeting, both processes is also that's because obviously I think as we saw in that once you've got to share the templates, that maybe takes a longer time. But so if you've got a centralized process, this could really accelerate that whole process and just getting the upload into QBO. I think and I think that's also just with Flash. You can create multiple columns where you can compare, actuals to budgets, and then also forecast as well, right? In the same, in the same sheet as well. So, okay, I think so. There's a couple of questions. I think we're, getting here to. We've got about last 10 minutes left here. So let's see if there's any other questions that are coming in here. I think in the webinar chat or in the Q&A, either one of those. So just. So one of the questions here is the forecast template available in our current version of Flash, or did you say it was coming? So what's coming in the next version of Flash is the report, and I don't know if you maybe just want to share that again, just in terms of just that forecast tab, just the forecast functionality. Mary Rose, well, you've maybe got that up there.
Working on that.
So what we've got is
so these two forecasts here.
So these, the forecast and the whole menu path, maybe you can just share that, is that the new webinar is going to be just that menu path with the new functionality. So there's an area that we're expanding on, the financial planning and analysis, and if you go down that, there's a whole number of reports, and Mary Rose ran the bottom one. if you run the P&L 12-month summary as well, right, and even a forecast, right? So if you just run that one, maybe that shows you just, for a fiscal period, and you can filter that by class as well, that then also puts it in graph form. So there we can see, just in terms of, so there's some high-level items that's included with that. But I think in terms of the template that Mary Rose demonstrated, so obviously, we can run that's a 12-month actuals report. And then the template that she created for 2026, that example, that's not available as standard. You'll just have to add those formulas in the same way that Mary Rose did it. But that's also standard Excel functionality, right, Mary Rose? I mean, I think that all that you did is just extend that into 2026. And you had those formulas, you calculated the average, and then you just multiplied it. This webinar, there's a question that's also going to be on our YouTube channel. So just make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can also follow exactly the same steps. If you're unsure as to what Mary Rose did, just to create that extend the forecast, and extend your budget calculations for 2026. Any other questions that are coming through you, Mary Rose? Anything else that you see over there?
Don't see any new questions.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I think here, I know that we've got quite a mix here, I think, of existing customers and some new folks that I think might not be familiar with with Flash. And then but I think it is actually a very good question, the one that's just come in. Mary Rose, do you want to talk just what Tracy's asking? I think that's also a fairly new functionality. It's only been around in 1 or 2 versions now, is the explode function.
Yes. So let's go back over to this one. So when creating this report, we made sure to have it add a class filter, and that will let us explode by class. So again, that is standard functionality already included. But if you select this and then you go down to explode, it's essentially going to make a copy of this first tab that we have selected for every single class.
Okay. And then just to add to that, Mary Rose, not that one probably needs to do it or wants to do it, but you can also, if you click on that, you can also select certain class values. So let's just say you select only 3 of them, then it will only explode 3 of them when you do the explosion. If you leave it blank, it explodes however many you have active of that dimension. And so obviously you're doing it for classes here, but you can do it for departments, or any other dimension as well.
Yeah, and you would the way that you set up your P&L to start with would determine what dimensions you have available to explode. So in this case, we set it up with classes here as the filter. So that's why it added this class filter at the top.
Yeah.
And it did include actuals. So after it's exploded the report, then yes, so then it does bring in the actuals filtered by the class. So this tab only shows our actuals for administration. This tab only shows our actuals for the building fund. Just whatever is written in this filter field, it will filter by.
And so just the benefit of that is that you don't have to go and recreate a report each time for 10, 12, 15 classes. You can the system automatically can generate those reports for you for those specific periods as well. And I think what's great, what you demonstrated, Mary Rose, you actually built in a template, right? I mean, you basically built your budget template, and then you exploded it across, for all your classes.
Yeah, so it's saved so much time. And if you've ever tried to do this by downloading your, kind of class filtered P&L from QuickBooks over and over and over and over again, you know how painful that process can be of just trying to keep all those straight and trying to combine them all and getting them all into a template. So this just let us do it directly in Excel.
Okay. Very cool. Okay, I think we're reaching the top of the hour here. So, Mary Rose, if I quickly just take it back here, and so just to wrap it up here. So, we've got a number of customers here today. Thank you very much for attending, and I hope you'll be able to use this newer, well, one say it's a new approach. Thank you to Mary Rose, I think, for demonstrating, the use case, for the functionality. For those of you who haven't, with flash reports, you've already got QBO. If you want to enter a trial, there's a 14-day trial. You can just download and subscribe on our website. You install the add-in, and I'll say within a matter of minutes, you can be doing exactly what Mary Rose did this afternoon. And so just from myself, Chris, I just want to say thank you very much, for attending today. Mary Rose.
Yeah, thank you guys. I hope you have a wonderful, smooth, stress-free budget process this year.
No, thank you. No, thank you, Mary Rose. Thank you. I think we've all learned a great deal, I think in terms of, how to improve our processes and overcome some of those challenges. So thank you very much for attending, and we'll post this out on the YouTube channel. So be sure to subscribe there, and in case you need to share it with some colleagues. Thank you. Thanks, Mary Rose.